We are here because we have a new government led by His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. And we need to have this retreat to equip our new leaders with requisite skills, insights, and the strategic frameworks that will help us navigate Ghana's evolving challenges effectively. We are very grateful for this collaboration with the UNDP. They have graciously supported us from day one. I'll call on Matthias to give us the rundown of the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me stand on existing protocols, recognizing His Excellency, the President of the Republic, and the former President of Nigeria, and my own boss, Ahuna, and all of you distinguished honorables. It is a true honor to join you at this pivotal executive leadership retreat under the theme, Reimagining Leadership in a Reset Ghana. Today, we gather at a unique moment, a moment that calls for bold reflection, renewed vision, and a deep commitment to transformational leadership. Ghana's journey has always been defined by courage, resilience, and aspiration. Reimagining leadership is not simply about new strategies, it is about embracing mindsets. And as co-facilitators for this session, we are delighted as UNDP and honored to have partnered with the government of Ghana to co-create this executive leadership program. And as was already said, the morning session, we will dive in straight into the opening ceremony, and that opening ceremony will be moderated by Honorable Felix Ofosu-Kwakye. And I guess in order not to waste too much time, we will proceed immediately with the opening ceremony. But before then, if I may, I would like us to just have some few housekeeping, I'm not sure where, there we go. So the expectations of the retreat were already discussed by Honorable Shamima, and thank you so very much for eloquently outlining the expectations. But we thought, dealing with all of you, we need to be guided by some ground rules, and I will not read them, but just to hope that we will use this space to deeply reflect and reimagine leadership in Ghana, make these next 2.5, 3 days count. So I'll just leave that on the screen. I was told to read from there, but it's quite far. But certainly these are the ground rules that we proposed together with the retreat committee to ensure that the benefits of this reflective moment will count. Let me stop here and introduce again Honorable Kwakye Ofosu, who will come and take us through the opening ceremony proceedings. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
And I'm certainly not Kwakye Ofosu, right? All right, so Felix is right here, my boss, Honorable, and he's asked me to do this instead. So I'm very honored. I'm very honored. Shaking in my boots, but very honored. Thank you so very much once again, and we dive straight ahead into the program for now. I'd like to invite to come and give us the welcome remarks as well, the Secretary to Cabinet, Professor Danso. Please welcome Professor Danso with a round of applause.
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Ghana, John Dramani Mahama, Your Excellency Goodluck Jonathan, former President of the Great Republic of Nigeria, UNDP Director General for Africa, H.E. Ahuna, Excellency Dr. Ibn Chambers, a good friend and student mates, Excellency, our own sister Hannah Tete, Honorable Chairman and our good brother, Chairman of the Council of Elders, Alhaji Mahama Idrisu, Honorable Chairman of the Great National Democratic Congress, our dear party, Honorable Ministers, Deputy Ministers, Regional Ministers, Presidential Staffers, and senior government officials, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is a distinct honor for me to deliver the welcome remarks for the 2025 Ministerial Executive Leadership Retreat on the 9th Government of the Fourth Republic of Ghana, focusing on leadership. Undoubtedly, leadership remains the fulcrum around which governments can fulfill the socioeconomic and developmental aspirations of their citizens. In this regard, prioritizing measures to empower and enhance effective and efficient leadership among the high echelons of government in any country is extremely commendable. I therefore consider the three-day event, which has been put together by the government of Ghana in collaboration with the United Nations Development Program, as apt. And thank UNDP for their support and long-standing fruitful partnership with Ghana. While acknowledging the timely nature of this retreat, it is essential to note that this event is also a novel one, since it is an amalgamation of three events comprising UNDP retreat, the government of Ghana's own retreat, and a cabinet orientation. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the work of cabinet, as you all know, is critical to the success of any government, including ours. The policies that emanate from cabinet decisions, coupled with their implementation, can make or break our responsiveness to the challenges of the 21st century. Admittedly, the John Mahama-led administration is faced with a Herculean task, as evidenced in the ailing economy, inherited, coupled with external challenges, including aid cuts, trade wars, and insecurity from incidents of terrorism. Ladies and gentlemen, the picture I have just painted about the challenges before this government is not only a gloomy one, as I am pleased to also mention that despite these challenges, and in barely 4 months into the John Mahama-led administration, bold steps have already been taken to fulfill a number of key campaign promises which form the basis for which the millions of Ghanaians gave us an unprecedented endorsement. The bold measures taken by government are not just in fulfillment of campaign promises, but are germane in resetting the country back on a positive path. That notwithstanding, it is pertinent to underscore the point that the kind of challenges before us cannot be addressed with the normal policy interventions we are used to. It would also require transformative solutions in line with the policy choices that we would drive unprecedented and sustained growth. With the participation of key players in government policy formulation and implementation, including cabinet ministers, I believe that the retreat provides participants with a fine opportunity to deliberate and have convergence of views on innovative solutions to the multifaceted challenges before us. I am confident that the seasoned resource persons here to lead various segments of the retreat, which will be characterized by experiential and interactive sessions, would go a long way to shape the direction of participants in navigating the issues in their respective sectors. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, I have no doubt in my mind that the platform created for participants to engage with key players from the private sector, donor partners, academia, that would contribute to consolidating the gains being made by government in resetting the country and restoring the economy, in particular, back to a sustained growth and trajectory. To our resource persons who have traveled from both far and near, I know that you could have chosen to stay in your homes, but the fact that you chose to join us today means you share our vision to reset. And us, the children of Dr. James Aggrey, we assure you that we would put the knowledge you impart to us to good use and fly, and soar, as Dr. Aggrey taught us. On this note, I warmly welcome you once again to this retreat, and I wish you fruitful deliberations. May the good Lord continue to bless Ghana and make Africa great and strong. Thank you and welcome.
Another round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so very much, Professor Kweku Dansubuafo, one of the old geese who is still going strong. Thank you for your service to the NDC and to Ghana and the world at large. And I'd like to invite our chair for today's occasion, who happens to be my uncle as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, Alhaji Mahama Idrisu is a former member of the Provisional National Defense Council, PNDC, and a founding member of the NDC. He is notably the longest-serving Minister of Defense in Ghana, having held the position for 14 years, from 1985 to 1999. Currently, he is the chair of the Council of Elders of the NDC. Please let us welcome our chair for today's opening ceremony, Alhaji Mahama Idrisu, with a round of applause, please.
Good morning to all of you. His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, President of the Republic of Ghana, former President of Nigeria, His Excellency Anwar, His Excellency Mohammed Ibn Chambers, His Excellency Ezeokono, Honorable Ministers, Deputy Ministers, and Senior Presidential Staffers, Honorable Members of Parliament, Nime, Name, ladies and gentlemen, members of the media, to our Ghanaian participants, I welcome you to the inviting environment of the Aqua Safari Resort in the Adafo district of the Greater Accra region of Ghana. To our foreign participants and visitors, I say welcome to Ghana, a country in the throes of reset agenda. We have gathered here today as the nucleus of the leadership of the 9th government of the 4th Republic, constituted by the National Democratic Congress, NDC, a government that has set itself an agenda to restart the country and to reposition Ghana as the shining black star of Africa, and let's say of the global black diaspora in today's world of uncertainties and unpredictabilities. Some of us may not be familiar with the social democracy philosophy of the NDC. Let me reiterate that our party won the 2024 electoral victory with a landslide majority. Some of us may not also be too familiar with the manifesto of the party on which we stood to win the resounding victory that has left our opponent bamboozled, petrified, and perplexed. These and other omissions are the deficiencies that this retreat has been organized to cure. We are also here to learn all that there is to know about the research agenda, the 24-hour economy policy, the challenges of the economy in the next 4 years, leadership and nation building, democratic decentralization for development, and most importantly, a code of conduct and ethics and managing of conflicts of interest situations. For these, we have assembled a very competent and capable team of local resource persons to find the answers. The UNDP, our counterpart organizers, on this part, has offered not only to complement our local efforts with its own team of seasoned and renowned experts, but also to address the burning international issues of the day, such as the future in a world of volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, and effective leadership communication. The UNDP has also graciously offered to underwrite a substantial part of the cost of organizing this retreat, an offer that has been accepted with gratitude. On behalf of the NDC Council of Elders, as well as the NDC party, I wish to thank all those who have played and continue to play various roles in ensuring that we have a successful retreat to guarantee us 4 years of successful reset agenda, which will lead to the party's reward mandate, which will lead to the party's renewed mandate for an extended stay in office until 6th January 2033. We are extremely grateful to His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama for doing all what in their power to get this function going on. We believe that all of us will listen with rapt attention and participate with the due diligence in the various captivating subjects that have been selected for our consumption. Welcome to the Adamfo Aqua Safari Resort. Welcome to the Republic of Ghana. And welcome to the Ministerial Retreat set to work to reset Ghana. I thank you.
Yes, please. So that was the Honorable Alhaji Mahama Idrisu, a veteran's veteran. Another round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. I had his profile. If I read it all, we wouldn't have closed. He has such a rich public experience. Next, I would like to invite to introduce to us our next speaker, our partner in this collaboration, UNDP, Niloy Banerjee, who is the resident rep for UNDP Ghana, would now come up stage and invite and welcome the UNDP Regional Director for Africa. Please, a round of applause.
Excellency President John Dramani Mahama, Excellency President Jonathan Goodluck, Madam Ahuna, distinguished guests. I have a lot of bosses in this room, so I better behave. There'll be no jokes. I'm very, very honored to welcome and introduce my boss, Ahuna Ezikonwa. She's the Assistant Secretary General of the United Nations and, of course, head of our Africa, UNDP's Africa Bureau. UNDP, as you know, is the UN's principal development agency and charged with a lot of a very complex mandate. But I'm here to really talk about Ahuna, not about UNDP. The greatest thing that inspires me about Ahuna is that she's an eternal optimist. She's an Afro-optimist. She's like, she wants to reframe the conversation in Africa as one of optimism and not one of negativity or so, Excellency President Mahama, this is a great time for us to engage. We stand with you in UNDP, and we want to be behind you as you do the reset agenda. Please count on our support. Ahuna has been a driving force for change in a number of pioneering initiatives in Africa. She's been a vocal advocate of Africa's money for Africa's development. I have a very short time, so I won't unpack that, but Africa's money for Africa's development. I think that's fairly clear. She has been a big driver of change for young women leaders. She has pioneered some amazing initiatives in the UNDP system where we are really promoting young women leaders, and she's having breakfast with some of you, women leaders in a couple of days. Ahuna also is a big driver of innovation and next generation technologies, next generation thinking, next generation insights. And she's inspiring us all to say, look guys, don't think small picture, think big picture. And you will hear from some of our resource persons the next big picture thing. I just want to recognize Professor Carlos Lopez, who recruited me into UNDP many years ago. You will hear some big ticket initiatives. Ahuna has also been, she's really encouraging us to get into the Africa free trade agreement issue and put UNDP's muscle behind this, which we can and will. Madam, I stand inspired by you. Thank you for being my leader.
Well, that was embarrassing. Because this today is certainly not about Ahuna. But Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Ghana, President John Dramani Mahama, Your Excellency, the former President of Nigeria, President Goodluck Jonathan, Your Excellency, my dear brother, Dr. Ibn Chambers, former colleagues, Professor Carlos Lopez, thank you for flying all the way here. I think we also have in the room Professor Dekeye Adebajo, who you will be hearing from later, my dear sister and colleague, Madame Hannah Tete, the daughter of the soil. We have, of course, our chief participants today, the ministers, deputy ministers, presidential advisors, and of course, all members of the functional executives of the National Democratic Congress, distinguished senior leaders, the UNDP family in Ghana and beyond. Dear partners, greetings, good morning. You know, I woke up this morning with the weight of history in my mind, something that I have come to take for granted as a West African. and that is that I woke up in the country that led the trail in independence from colonial rule, Ghana being the first to distinguish itself in gaining independence at that time. That we shouldn't take for granted, but it sort of tickled me this morning about why Ghana and why today, as we undertake a journey to reimagine leadership in a reset Ghana and indeed a reset world. I think the question is, can Ghana do it again? Can Ghana be the first to lead this beautiful continent of ours towards economic sovereignty? To you, Your Excellency, the President, I want to offer heartfelt congratulations on your election to the highest office of the land. Your leadership comes at a pivotal moment in our world, but also here in Ghana's. And we want to commend your vision for a transformative reset. Your presence here today, Your Excellency, for me signals your humility as a leader, but also your conviction that a national resolve is necessary in building the future. To Her Excellency, the Vice President, who is not with us here today, but I'm sure is here in spirit, we celebrate your historic achievement as Ghana's first female Vice President. A milestone that inspires us all, but also future generations, and underscores the nation's commitment to gender equality and the empowerment of women. To the honorable ministers and deputy ministers and all participants, we applaud your appointments and the trust placed in you to steer Ghana into the right direction in terms of its development trajectory, especially in times such as this. 2 years ago, Your Excellency, I tasked my team to develop a regional leadership program for countries that are moving into transformation and transition. This was born out of the realization that Africa's transformation will require bold, ambitious, transformational, and adaptive leadership. With the global shifts now, including in the governance of development assistance, the imperative for Africa's leadership has never been more urgent. As you know, Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, development cooperation is shrinking, as is multilateralism. What we all knew before as being in a global village where solidarity mattered is no longer to be taken for granted. And therefore, an important moment for all leaders on this continent to wake up and stand up for what they must do to sustain the future of their citizens. This executive leadership program, therefore, exemplifies the shared commitment between the government of Ghana and UNDP to foster transformative leadership as the cornerstone of sustainable development in times of turmoil. We deeply appreciate this partnership and also the commitment that the Ghana government has shown. Ghana stands at a critical juncture in its development journey, one that demands bold leadership to navigate both long-standing challenges and emerging global uncertainties and complexities. Since the return of multi-party democracy in 1992, Ghana has emerged as a beacon of stability and progress in West Africa and in all of Africa, especially in its economic, democratic, and human development records. Ghana's economy has grown from $7 billion in 92 to $78.1 billion in 2024, with periods of remarkable expansion driven by prudent reforms, natural resource management, and private sector growth.
Ghana has also demonstrated 5 peaceful political transitions, a vibrant civil society, and strong institutions like the Electoral Commission and the judiciary, who have cemented Ghana's reputation as a democratic model. Near universal primary enrollment of 98%, decline in poverty rate, and improved healthcare access reflect your commitment to inclusive growth. Yet, as we celebrate these achievements, we must also confront hard truths. Despite growth, income inequality persists, with the top 10% earning 33% of national income. Ghana is experiencing a growing youth unemployment, almost 20%, with those in urban areas being worse off. The situation is also quite dire in relation to debt to GDP ratios, which at the moment exceeds 90% and constrain fiscal space for development. Global shocks from COVID-19 to geopolitical tensions have exposed vulnerabilities in a commodity-dependent economy, prompting the leadership of this country to reflect on a reset about the structure of its economy. Climate change, technological disruptions, and geopolitical shifts demand that we collectively rethink how we lead ourselves and others in a growing, unpredictable world. This is not a moment for incrementality. Resetting Ghana requires leaders who are prepared to invest in breakthrough moments. And I want to highlight a couple of the things in my own reflection that I think would be necessary to guide this reflection. One is leaders who think systemically, addressing poverty, climate, and governance as interconnected challenges. Leaders who go beyond managing poverty to promoting wealth and prosperity. The second is leaders who govern with courage, making tough choices to rebuild trust. Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, this past week, we saw the passing of a great man, Pope Francis. I was struck by the reflection on his life and the fact that he had been so sick and doctors had said, be careful, don't go out and greet people, save your breath. And he went the opposite. He exactly took himself out there to connect with the people, knowing that that might be his last chance. And some commentator described it as the fact that he wanted to go while on the front line. That is courage, to understand what our lives mean for those that we serve and to invest the last breath in demonstrating that compassion. The third is leaders who innovate relentlessly, leveraging technology and green transitions as engines of job creation. Your Excellency, the countries that will make it in these troubled times are governments who understand the importance of investing in new technologies and in innovation as a priority. Leaders who lead inclusively, ensuring that people are at the center of the development agenda. Ensuring that women, youth, and all marginalized groups shape policies. Leaders who choose sustainability. We are in a country of extractives, where we begin to see the drive for development interfere quite significantly with the sustainability of the ecosystem. We are at the danger of compromising prosperity for the future, even as we move to attend to needs of today. Leaders who understand the balance between people and planet in their development journey. Leaders who invest in turning raw materials into jobs rather than exporting those jobs by just exporting their raw materials. The UNDP's 2023 Africa Leadership Report found that nations that embraced such approaches and values grew almost 3 times faster than their peers. Ghana's reset can set that precedent. Your Excellency, distinguished participants, as the United Nations lead development agency, UNDP firmly upholds leadership as a cornerstone of sustainable progress. It is in this spirit that we are honored to partner with the government of Ghana, particularly the executive branch, in convening this critical executive leadership program. This gathering is designed not as a prescriptive exercise where you're told what to do or not do, but as a strategic platform to strengthen leadership acumen, deepen insights, and refine governance frameworks, particularly for those who are entrusted with a new mandate as you are. Our intent is not to question the considerable expertise that already is present in this room, but rather to recognize that leadership in times of transition require collective intelligence and demands renewed reflection and a commitment to national resolve. Today's challenges, whether economic, social, or geopolitical, require us to ask, what does transformative leadership look like in this era? How do we lead with both vision and resilience? Over the next 3 days, we will engage in robust dialogue on strategic foresight, on evidence-based policy making, on adaptive governance, essential tools for navigating Ghana's reset agenda. The sessions have been meticulously designed to move beyond conventional instruction. Instead, they will foster interactive learning, critical reflection, and peer exchange. We are privileged to be guided by globally respected facilitators, leaders who have not only studied governance, but have lived it, driving tangible change in their own nations. Our collective aspiration is that this retreat will serve as a catalyst, equipping you with fresh perspectives, renewed energy, and actionable strategies to steer Ghana towards inclusive and sustainable development. And UNDP remains really committed as your partner of choice to walk this path with you. So let's seize this opportunity to reimagine leadership, not just for today, but for the Ghana we're building together. I want to end, Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, by saying I love proverbs. And there is one African proverb that says, he who thinks he's leading and has no one following is just taking a walk. Thank you.
Another round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Are we taking a walk? I didn't hear. Are we taking a walk? It looks like people are taking a walk. I don't know about you, but His Excellency is certainly not taking a walk. His Excellency, are you taking a walk? So thank you so very much, Ms. Ahuna Eziakonwa, for your deep insights and your call to action for us to embrace transformative leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, another round of applause. Before I welcome our next guest, I'd like to briefly acknowledge the presence of some of our great leaders within the party who have worked and served Ghana in different capacities over the years. I would like to acknowledge the presence of Professor Kwamina Ahoy, who is still going strong and was one of the leaders of the planning committee for this retreat. Also in our midst, the Honorable Kwame Pepra is here with us. We acknowledge your presence, sir. Also, you heard earlier from Professor Kweku Danso. In our midst also is Mr. Kofi Totobi Kwache. And we acknowledge all your presence and will be doing more acknowledgements in due time. We also have in our presence the Majority Leader, the Honorable Mahama Ayariga. Thanks for your presence as well. And once again, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of all senior staffers and advisors at the presidency. Next, it is my distinguished honor and pleasure to welcome our guest of honor, the Honorable Goodluck Jonathan, who is a Nigerian zoologist, did you know that? And a politician who served as vice president in Nigeria from 2007 to 2010, and the president of Nigeria from 2010 to 2015. He attended the University of Port Harcourt, earning a BSc in zoology in 1981, and an MS in hydrobiology and fisheries, and a PhD in zoology in 1995. He worked as an assistant director at the Oil Mineral Producing Areas Development Commission, which is now defunct, from 1993 to 1998. He was elected deputy governor of Bayelsa until 2005, when he was elevated to the governorship position after the incumbent was charged with corruption and impeached. In 2007, he was selected to be the running mate of the PDP's presidential candidate, Umar Musa Yar'Adua. And the rest, they say, is history when you have a name as good as Goodluck Jonathan. So either you're a Goodluck Jonathan or you're a John Dramani Mahama, and they're all seated together today with very interesting shared experiences. Ladies and gentlemen, let's, with a resounding round of applause, welcome our guest of honor, His Excellency Goodluck Jonathan.
Thank you. Please be seated. Thank you for that, my profile. But the most important job I did, and the one I think I love most, you left it out. That was when I lectured. That was the most important job, and the one I still believe the best. For today, let me appreciate His Excellency, my good friend, President Mahama. Let me also appreciate the Regional Director of UNDP Africa, and for your brilliant speech. Let me appreciate the Chairman of NDC, because without them we will not be here. And let me just adopt the protocol of the previous speakers so that I would not waste much of your time. Secretary to Cabinet, if I stay here more than 10 minutes, just raise your hand so that I will go down. Because I don't want to waste too much time, because this session will supposed to take 1 hour. And I have to thank the President and the government for taking care of me and my team since we arrived yesterday. And I'm quite pleased that UNDP and the government invited me to come and participate in this retreat, Thinking Leadership and Leading Systems. It's a quite interesting topic. We talked about leadership and leadership of a country. Ordinarily, I would have, as a keynote speaker,
I would have come with a written script to read, but I'm always mindful about theoretical issues, maybe taken from the books, taken from what people said. So I'll just have a little conversation with you and leave. Because what will I tell President Mahama? Two of us were vice presidents. He has been a president for the past he was a president for 4 years and is back. I was also the president for just 5 years. And he is a scholar. I know him very well. The cabinet of Ghana, from the little I know, you can describe it as a smart cabinet, like smart cities these days. Made up of a number of very young people and very well-informed. So what kind of theories about leadership that I need to tell them? No. I will just share some of my experiences. Well, and I'm always mindful. I remember in the mid-80s or so, at the beginning of use of computers for word processing. Because I lived in Port Harcourt then, we were using electric typewriters to do word processing. Then I have a friend who read secretariat studies and was working in Lagos. So he quickly got a small desktop computer, came to Port Harcourt and set up a word processing small business. And because people loved the computer compared to the electric typewriters that were being used, so people are always going there. So his business was doing well. And one year he wrote 2 books. First is Management of Small Businesses, and he was managing a small business. And he wrote a book on how to manage small businesses. And he also established a magazine on, is it counseling or so, family counseling or something like that. I went for the launching of those 2 books. Then I was assistant director in the project the lady mentioned. And that year, his small business collapsed. That year, his wife left him. So I'm always mindful about theoretical issues. So I will not attempt to take you through theoretical concepts, but I sincerely appreciate being a part of this story. And for President Mahama, you are lucky. Not very few presidents lose elections and come back. You and Trump, you are back. But the key thing is you have an advantage because you've been president before, so no learning curve. You will hit the ground running from day one. But the disadvantage you have is, assuming the previous time, I don't want to do analysis of the Ghana economy now and then. If there were things we're doing very well and things have changed, people will expect that from day one, you move the country to that level. And that's the burden you and your ministers have. In Nigeria, some people come to me whether I'll contest election 2027 or not. And I look at the dynamics, I say, don't worry, I'm thinking. And if I look at the social media, people will post, take us to where Jonathan left us. That means that if I should jump in to contest the election from day one, people will expect me to take Nigeria to where I left. I mentioned 2 things. Our exchange rate then, when I was in office, was about 150 naira to the dollar. Almost throughout. But towards the elections, either because of the nature of our campaigns, some people really demarketed the country because of politics, or maybe too much money, the forms of dollar came into the market. The exchange rate moved quite close to 200, but not quite 200 naira to the dollar. Now the exchange rate is 1,500 plus to the dollar. Is there any magic wand you will use to push it back? It's difficult. 2 days ago, I was discussing with one of my security officers. I said that they entered the restaurant or so, and somebody ordered for a plate of rice. And I asked the price, and they said 8,000 naira. And somebody says, but in 2015, that was the year I left, we were buying a bag of rice for 8,000. Now a plate of rice is 8,000. So can I perform that kind of magic? And you see, Nigeria and Ghana, our tenures of president is so short. In Africa, it's only Nigeria and Ghana that have 4 years tenure of presidency. Other countries have 5. Most countries have 5 years. And I remember when I was a vice president, one of our presidents, we were having a conversation, said, you Nigerians think that America, they are so stable to have just 4 years. What can somebody do in 4 years? If you're a new person and you just come in, you need about a year as a learning curve before you will adjust. You work for 2 years, the next year is election year. So the time to really move your country is very, very limited. So you have this kind of restriction. But in terms of leadership, we are talking about what, let me say, political leadership. It's what brought us here. We have leadership in our religious institutions, in our clubs and societies, businesses, families, and so on. We have our kings and chiefs, and so on. But when you look at the book, Why Nations Fail, written by Daron Acemoglu and James Robinson, they say, why nations fail? They argue that nations' long-term success or failure depends on its political and economic institutions. And I agree with that. The book, Why Nations Fail and Why Democracy is Dying, they have similar issues they analyze. The political and economic institutions. The economic institutions are established by the political leaders. And those who head these economic institutions are appointed by the political leaders. So the political leadership is a key thing that we must. To me, I will not look at, today I will not look at what will Mahama do for Ghana to succeed, somebody that will lead this country for the next 4 years. What should this government do to prepare Ghana for the next 25, 30 years? And UNDP, since you are supporting us, you have to look at what should African countries do? What should Ghana do? And the dynamics in Ghana would change from now. They can just they can just start it. But in the next 25 years, next 30 years, what should Ghana be? I'm saying so because if you look at Ghana, you look at Nigeria and some other African countries, in the late 50s to early 60s, we were almost at the same development level with countries like South Korea, Singapore, even India. But today, 6 of the top high-tech companies in America, their MDs are Indians. Indians that are schooled in India, not Indians that are schooled in America. Indians that are schooled in India. The dean of Harvard Business School is an Indian that's schooled in India. Look at Nigeria and Singapore. If you read Liu Kahun's book, in the early 60s, people were saying, how will Singapore be like Nigeria? Because Nigeria was ahead of Singapore in Singapore. What must be the reason? Political leadership. The GDP of Ghana and that of South Korea in the early 60s, Ghana's GDP was higher than that of South Korea. But today, in terms of the net GDP, South Korea is about 1.7 trillion. GDP per capita, that of Ghana, I'm not too sure, is about like $2,000. That of South Korea is $30,000. See the gap. Look at India and others. The rapid growth in the first 6 years, you begin to ask yourself, what happened? Why is that no African country south of the Sahara is having that kind of growth? In the early 60s, the Saudi royal families used to come to Nigeria University of Ibadan Teaching Hospital for medical treatment in the early 60s. Now, any challenge that we have in Nigeria, major one, those who have money can go to US, UK, Germany, India, Dubai, Egypt. Instead of going up, we are going down. The UNDP regional director talks about if we must move our countries forward, we must invest in technology. I agree, but I still see that as a short-term approach. If we must move African countries forward, and if Ghana must move forward, then we'll not just invest in technology, but we'll invest in the people that will create the technology. And if you look through India, you'd think that Indian leading IT is by accident or fell from the moon. No. In the late 40s, when the country was preparing for independence, the leaders set up what they call Indian Institute of Technology. I think they set up with 4 of them, because they knew the pattern that after MIT or so in the US. And most of these Indians, young people that are top in high-tech are products of those schools. They had that vision that without proper technological education, you cannot change a nation. And as at that time, to gain admission to these schools is purely merit-based. Then 95% in mathematics will not secure your admission. For you to get admission, you must get something like 98%. The kind of children that Professor Lubaye will describe them as genetic accidents. These geniuses are everywhere, and somehow, luckily, it's not limited to the upper class. The upper class can have money and send their children to very expensive schools, but those are not the schools we're talking about, not those expensive schools, but the schools for gifted children. And they are there, sometimes in the villages, they don't even go to school. So if we must move Africa forward, then Mahama must begin to think about reviewing the educational system in Ghana. First and foremost, we must make sure that we get the Ghanaians, brilliant boys and girls, who we believe in, and most of these countries go to Israel, that they are so good in defending themselves, in most cases we think because of how they worship their gods. Even before Israel gained independence, they invested in what they call a program that they take 200 children every year. They select 2,000, and from that 2,000, it was selected by school. So they develop everything about the person. The same thing in Singapore. Singapore, with a population of 5 million people, have 2 of their universities among the top 100 universities in the world, the top 100. No African universities among the top 100. The top 200, yes, the University of Cape Town is among the top 200. That is the only African university that's even among. How can you compete with others? This is a knowledge-based economy. Technology is driven by knowledge and innovation. And it cannot come by chance. You must grow up in a system that prepares you for that. A child that has not seen a car cannot take a clay and mold a car. You can mold what you have seen. And that is one of the key problems we have in Africa in our leadership. But it's not easy to get there. And let me mention 3 things I tried to do when I was in office and the challenges I have. I'll just share that. I use that to illustrate some of the leadership things we need to do. First and foremost, I appreciate Mahama because his cabinet, I think he selected them very well. You must select a team of competent people, which sometimes is lacking in most African countries. We select our cabinet based on relationship or patronage. I tried a little. I'm not an economist and so on, but during my period, we did very well because I brought Ngozi to head my economic team. I'm not sure Ngozi was even in Nigeria when we were doing the election. I think he was in World Bank in Washington. I brought the present ADB president. I think he's also to speak, Dr. Adesina. He was in Kenya. He was not even in Nigeria to vote. But I felt that we must do something different in agriculture. And we knew his capacity, and I brought him. Some of my cabinet members, I believe they did not even vote for me. But at the end of the day, I was happy because we tried within that 4 years after I won the election in 2011. So getting the competent hands to man major departments of government is critical, and it's lacking in most of our countries. Already I've appointed their cabinet, but from the information I have, because I asked questions, I think, I'm not saying 100%. You can never get 100% because you must balance the situations. But the economic team must be made up of top-class people that can push. And they, too, must lead, because leadership is not the president alone. The ministers, the junior ministers, and others holding executive positions. I always give an example that, look, somebody wants to give an appointment and say, oh, instead of appointing maybe for a fight or to hunt, and you have a tiger, you have a cat, and somebody, instead of giving the appointment to the tiger, will say, oh, no, the cat is also an carnivorous animal. After all, the cat also has cancerous teeth like the tiger. But we know, yes, the cat is the same group of animals like the tiger, but the cat cannot do the work of a tiger. And that is how we give our appointments. That is the beginning of failure. And you must really, really stay away from it. Just like I mentioned the issue of educating our top brains to recreate our countries. When I took over as the president, I felt that building specialized universities now to that level may take time. So let me start by looking at the country, taking the first class, people who have made first class in the STEM areas, the science and engineering areas and high-tech areas. And from there, we select some and send to the top universities all over the world. So they will come back to Nigeria and help to push our technology transformation. Nigeria, we have a nuclear program, but we are not developing it properly. We have our satellite programs, we are not developing it properly. Then, of course, we are into the IT revolution. We cannot lag behind. So we must train our best brains. Of course, when I started, my philosophy then was that I call it Presidential Special Scholarship for Innovation and Development. And I called the Minister of Education, the Executive Secretary of the National University Commission, and others to form the team to drive the process. And I said, in this particular program, even if a lady has quadruplets, 4 children, and 4 of them qualify, you take. It has nothing to do with federal character, no. We have different programs that we can talk about the federal character, but for this, Even if all of them are coming from the same town, so be it. We must train our best brains. I have a major problem with the National Assembly. People started querying, why is that my state don't have anybody? And I remember they invited the minister and the executive secretary, who was a very radical retired professor. And after they harassed them why some parts of the country people are not there and so on, they said that, well, if you query anybody, in fact, invite the president, go and see the president and discuss with him. This was the initiative of the president, and we are only driving the process. But let me tell you, we have done 2 sets now, and no beneficiary came from the president's state. No beneficiary came from the state of the vice president. I'm from Bayelsa State, small state. The vice president from Kaduna State. Kaduna is a big state. But incidentally, for the first 2 sets, these are our 2 states. Nobody qualified for it. And asked, do you think these people are fools? The president is not a fool, the vice president is not a fool, but they meant well for the country. In fact, incidentally, the greatest number of beneficiaries came from states dominated by even the opposition party. So I know the plan was that, okay, if the budget get there, they will kill the budget so that the program will be frustrated. See how we politicians think. You have a vision where you want to take your people to, but the parliament have their own vision. And what I did was to make sure, okay, no budget will come to the National Assembly, but I will spend money that is approved by the budget. We have a number of departments of government that give scholarships. So I just say you must reserve money from your own department for this and put 3 departments together. And I started funding the program. So you can't query me that I'm spending money that was not budgeted for. That's why I run the system. But immediately I left, the next government came in and killed it. And that is the area I want to start, or I want to discuss further. For us to change our countries, now we are talking about Ghana, the president and his team must have focus. If you read, you can read books and some other books about the Asian tigers and so on. Because when I was the vice president, I didn't know I was going to be president any day, but I just asked some of my friends that, look, I want to sponsor a research. How long does it take this Singapore and other countries, South Korea, other Asian tigers, to move from the 3rd world where we are to this 1st world or near 1st world? After some time, they came back to me and said, Vice President, our report is ready. And when you read through the report, not to be a voluminous thing, it took these countries an average of 30, 35 years. So with a focused leadership, we can move Nigeria, we can move Ghana, we can move Senegal, we can move Cote d'Ivoire from 3rd to near 1st world. But the key thing is that there must be a focused leadership and consistency. The advantage these other countries had was that within those periods that they moved from the 3rd to the 1st, like Singapore, it's only one person that managed the affairs of the country. And he was a dictator, somehow, but he was a positive dictator. And he had the focus and pushed the country to where he wanted to. You don't have that luxury in a democracy, because the tenure of a Ghanaian president, a Nigerian president, is 8 years, shortest in Africa. But then, assuming we are playing positive politics, if a policy of government that you know this will transform my people, whoever takes over is supposed not to drop that policy. Just like I had a precede that I explained, because I wanted to train our best brains to come and drive technological innovations. We also came up with, because the greatest problem we have also, maybe I know some of the panel here will discuss is how do we create jobs for our young people? And we come up with what we call UWIN, so that it's difficult for the government to employ everybody. We're not industrialized because it's the private sector that employs. And a country that is not industrialized, the private sector is weak. How many can they employ? So we say the one thing is to diversify the economy, first of all, by encouraging young people to go into productive ventures. So when you finish from the university, you should create a small enterprise and grow your company. So we started the UWIN as through competition. You must tell us what you intend to do. So we selected and trained the young people and gave them grants. The grants were monitored, were not given at once. In fact, after the second year, when they did the exhibition, I was quite impressed with the vision of some of them and what they were already doing. If that program had continued for even 10 years, most of those small enterprises would have grown up to medium-level enterprises. And they would have created a lot of jobs for Nigerian young people. Because when you empower one person in an enterprise, he in turn will employ 2, 3, 4, in some cases 10. And some of them, from the visions they had, probably by now, would have started even micro industries. Why is South Korea where they are? The Samsungs, the Kias, the Hyundais, the LG, and others, these are highly good in electronics. Because South Korea, with a population of 5 million people, has 2 of the universities among the top 100 universities. They invest in creating the brains that drive their technology orientation. And that is what we African countries must do if we must move. That you win when the new government took over from 2015, it was dropped. And it's a program that probably by now, the Nigerian young people that say out of job would have been, the percentage would have been increasing every year if the program had continued. We did a similar program, the Agropreneur program. The UN program was driven by Minister of Finance under Ngozi. The Agropreneur was driven in Ministry of Agri by Akin. Because of that, I asked my executive director to bring my book, my transition hours, some copies, so that the cabinet ministers can read one, I think chapter 13 or so, page 131 to 140, about 10 pages, that talks about this Agropreneur and you win. And assuming you want to do something similar and you reach out to me, I will ask these people, well, Ngozi is still the DG, the World Trade Center, but he will still come and have a conversation with whoever is managing that. Of course, I can still ADB there. They will come. Because we must come up with innovations, not just creating jobs, but where we will bring technology into play. And but the key thing is we must produce those people that will drive our technology innovation. That means that we must filter our countries and see those young men and women that are so gifted because of the kind of politics we play. When I was the state governor, I started a similar thing in my state. I am from one of the smallest states in Nigeria, down south, we're just like a riverine area close to by the Atlantic Ocean called Bayelsa State, but that is where the oil production activities go on. And we used to have a lot of challenges between youth and oil companies. And that's why you must have heard the word militants in the Niger Delta militants. As a deputy governor, sometimes you have this kind of challenge. You have to move into a crowd of young people with assault rifles. I remember there was a particular case. They hijacked one helicopter belonging to a company, took it to their community. They will have to go and negotiate. And I felt that I must make changes. That what I have to do is to make sure I filter all these villages, all the towns, and train the best, send them to the best secondary schools in the country and the best universities in the world. Let them come back and show leadership. We cannot continue that way. Otherwise, the state will be going down. Your brains cannot be carrying guns and moving about in the creeks. Your brains must stay in offices, stay in factories, and produce. I started that project. Unfortunately for me, when I won my primaries to contest as the governor of Bayelsa State, my party drafted me to the center to be the running mate to the late president. And that's just, the next governor didn't see things that way. So that project was killed. And that is the challenge we have in Africa. I describe the politics we play as a kind of primitive politics. And that is even the fear that even if a president, Mahama now, because he's very creative and he has a creative cabinet, if they come up with key things that they will do, that in the next 25 to 30 years, it will change the story of Ghana. It's not too sure of the next president. It could even be from his party. In Bayelsa, the person who took over from me, from my party, I even helped him to become the governor. But still, didn't continue with my vision. At the center, it was an opposition party, so I can understand. And that is one of the things I will have to plead with even the members of the parliament. Luckily, in Ghana, you have a little bit of hybrid situation, where some members of parliament are also ministers. So the kind of confrontation that normally we experience in Nigeria, where the parliament is completely separated from the executive, you don't experience it here. Because they are colleagues, the ministers, and the other are colleagues that can easily discuss. But my plea for members of parliament in African countries is a president come up with a program that you believe is good for the people of the country, like here Ghana. Whether you're in party A or B or C, you should support it. Don't kill it. I had some bad experience, but let me not go there today. Maybe a story for another day. So I think, let me just have this little conversation with you for today. I don't want to give the formal keynote speech that you'll expect, but I feel let me just mention these few things. Let us think about Ghana in the next 25 to 30 years. The Asian tigers took them about 30, 35 years, not a lifetime, to move their countries from third world to near first world. And African countries can do it. I thank you all.
Please be generous with the applause. Thank you so very much. Your Excellency Goodluck Jonathan, former President, Nigeria guests of honor. Another round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Right. I'd like to also acknowledge the presence of one of our veterans as well, the Honorable Nana Atu Dadzi. So you can catch them later on and hear some of their very brilliant stories and experiences. It's now time to hear from the man who is at the center of the arena, one who has brought together a team with a vision to reset Ghana and bring Ghana back onto winning ways, to take its rightful and prideful place in the Committee of Nations, a true black star of Africa. A man who is a real grassroots man. I say no foot soldier has experienced more than him. He's our #1 foot soldier. From an assemblyman, to a member of parliament, to a deputy minister, to a minister, to a vice president, to president chapter 1, to president chapter 2. Can your president can? Ladies and gentlemen, it is my singular honor to welcome to the podium to give us his speech for the official opening of the Ministerial Executive Leadership Program, our President, the President of the Republic of Ghana, His Excellency, John Dramani Mahama.
Thank you very much. Let me acknowledge our chairman and council of elders, chairman of the Council of Elders of our party, Alhaji Mahama Idrisu. Let me acknowledge my friend and brother, President Goodluck Jonathan, former President of the Republic of Nigeria. I think the speaker is not here. Yeah, but he's here on my list. The Honorable Majority Leader, Mama Yarga, the Honorable Mohammed Ibn Chambers, veteran diplomat, our honored guests who have traveled from far to be with us, Professor Carlos Lopez, it's good to see you again, and Professor Adeke Adebajo, you are welcome. United Nations Development Program Director, Ahuna Esiakonwa, thank you for this great program. The former Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Honorable Hannah Tete, who is currently the UN Secretary General's representative to Libya, the chairman of our party, Johnson Asiedum Ketia, ministers of state, senior government officials, diplomatic corps, and if I've missed anybody, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I want to, on your behalf, thank President Jonathan for the very interesting statements he's made. He decided not to do a boring keynote, but rather to have some musings of his time in office, and I think they've been very interesting and informative. And so on your behalf, I thank him very much. President Jonathan and I have been friends for a long time, and we came together by accident of history. He was elected vice president to a president who was not too well. I also got elected vice president to an ailing president. And so both our presidents preferred to stay at home. And so for many summits, Africa's Union summits, UN, ECOWAS, we found ourselves representing our presidents at these summits. And for those of you who know the pecking order in these summits, you are measured by the fact that you are president. That's the first category. And apart from that, they are senior presidents. And in those days, we had the Gaddafis and others. And so even if you were president, the Gaddafis and Musevenis and co were like the elder presidents. And so when they did the sitting arrangements for dinner and things, the Gaddafis and the big presidents were in one place, then the smaller presidents of smaller nations, before we, the vice presidents. And so I found myself sitting for dinner many times with him. And because Ghana and Nigeria, we have our jollof wars, we always ended up being put together. They say these two are our brothers, put them together. And so that's how we became friends. And our paths have taken the same trajectory. His presidents passed, and he was sworn in to take over. And then he went on to win the next election. My president passed, I was sworn in to take over. And I went on to win the next election. And so our friendship continued as presidents. And then he went on to lose the next election. And then jinxed me too. And so I also went on to lose the next election. The only difference is he has stepped away, from direct engagement in politics. I continue, and I'm sure that that's part of the pressure he's feeling. People must be saying, oh, but you don't see your brother John Mahama next door. He stood again and he has come back. And I'm sure that's the pressure you're facing with regards to 2027. But I know that he makes the right calls. And we thank him for the very beautiful conversation we have had. And I want to note some of the things that he talked about. And there's one. We had a partnership with Nigeria, and so he used to bring them in batches. We had space in our National Vocational Training Institute, and so he used to bring them in batches for training in our NVTI. And so we trained them in carpentry, in masonry, auto mechanics, electricals, and so on and so forth. And that was a great partnership between Ghana and Nigeria. And when these young people went back to Nigeria, they went back with a skill to go into the world of work. We also, I take note of his remarks in respect to pathways to transform our country. And one of them was for us to transform our educational system and review it. And I'm happy that currently ongoing under the supervision of our Honorable Minister for Education, we have a National Educational Review Program that is ongoing to look at ways we can restructure our educational system to make it give us the kind of quality outcomes that we need to create the new Ghanaian that will move this nation forward. In addition, he spoke about the role of technology in transforming our nations. We know that we are in a knowledge world, and it is not the size of your GDP or your economy, but the knowledge that your people have to be able to transform their country. And so I'm happy that just 2 weeks ago, we launched our Million Coders program, and we enrolled the first batch of more than 500 students to start learning coding and other digital technology skills. And I hope that it grows, like he said, and that other governments will come and continue so that we can create the pool of digital manpower that we need to follow in the footsteps of countries like India. The other issues that he raised in terms of how to transform our countries in a democratic environment. In environments like that, sometimes you take 2 steps forward, and then things change, you take 3 steps backwards. And it makes it difficult because of the lack of a certain continuity. But we need to balance the two out. You have countries like Singapore, he gave policy on indigenous participation in our natural resource exploitation. And anytime, we're not going to expropriate anybody's concession or anything, but anytime a lease comes up for renewal, we would want to negotiate to see that there's more Ghanaian participation, indigenous Ghanaian participation in these things, so that we can also raise the resources to bring prosperity to our people. You go to the mining areas and look at the communities around the mining centers, still steeped in poverty. Government has to replace schools and the trees, even at this time, build CHIPS compounds, repair the roads and all that. And we can only do that if we can get the resources from the natural resource endowment that God has given us. And so, yes, we would codify it, and as and when, the opportunity comes, we'll renegotiate some of these things so that Ghanaians can also participate in the blessing that God gave us. And so with those few statements, I'll proceed to inflict my written speech on you. Mercifully, it's not too long. And so good morning and welcome to this very important and timely Ministerial Executive Leadership Retreat, the first of this administration. This retreat marks a defining moment. It is not a formality, it is a foundational step in rethinking the future of governance, leadership, and development in our country. I wish to thank the United Nations Development Programme for its continued partnership with Ghana and for its instrumental role in making today's engagement possible. Ladies and gentlemen, Ghana stands at a crossroads. We're faced with daunting economic realities, record level of public debt, a distressed economy overly reliant on raw commodity exports, rising unemployment, especially amongst our youthful population, and a widespread erosion of public confidence in our democracy and our institutions. I make this plain not to point fingers or to lament about the situation, and that is not why we're here. We're here because Ghanaians chose hope. They voted for leadership that is bold, humble, honest, and unafraid to take the tough decisions that will transform our country. I stand before you not to make promises, but to issue a challenge. And that challenge begins with each of us in this room. We cannot solve the problems of today with the methods of yesterday. We must lead differently, we must think differently, and we must act differently. The business as usual approach will not work. Indeed, it is dead, and we must bury it once and for all. This retreat with its theme, reimagining leadership in a reset Ghana, is more than symbolic. It is actually a call to action. We're not here simply to orient ministers. We're here to shape a collective mindset, a shared vision for leadership that is people-centered, that is innovative, transparent, and that is transformational. Ghana needs more than just competent administrators. We need bold reformers, ministers who will lead to say so. And that is what leadership demands at this moment. My brothers and sisters, the problems we face are real, but so are the solutions. We can rebuild our economy, we can create jobs, we can restore faith in governance, but we must commit to the hard work of change. You were not appointed to occupy space, you were appointed to solve problems. Let me remind you of the social contract we have entered into. The Ghanaian people expect us to deliver, and we must not with excuses, but with results. I've said before and I repeat now, this is the legacy term of my presidency. I intend to make it count. I intend for it to matter, and I expect that every member of this administration will do the same. We must work with a sense of urgency, and President Jonathan spoke about the 4-year term. Our young people are tired of waiting interminably. Our farmers, our workers, our entrepreneurs, especially our women and youth, want to see policies that work for them. They want fairness, they want opportunity, they want to live in dignity and prosperity. Indeed, they are not asking for handouts. They're asking to be given a fair shot. And let's give them just that. The task before us requires leadership that is empathetic, that is disciplined and accountable, leadership that is not defined by titles, but by service, that is not defined by slogans, but by substance. And so I issue this challenge to each of you to lead your sectors with vision and integrity, to champion innovation, make decisions based on facts and data and not on guesswork, spend public funds wisely and judiciously, reject opulence, and never forget your first duty is to the people of Ghana and not to your own political survival, not to the applause you will get, and not to your personal gain. At the same time, let me offer a word of hope. We are not alone in this journey. Ghana is a country of immense potential. We have a resilient population, a rich natural resource base, a growing digital ecosystem, and a proud history of leadership on the continent. If we leverage our strengths, if we work in partnership with the private sector, with civil society, and with our development partners, we can transform this nation. My administration will pursue bold reforms through initiatives like the 24-hour economy and the Big Push. These will create jobs, will expand infrastructure, will boost productivity, and position Ghana as a leader not only in West Africa but in Africa. But to do this, we must attract investment, both local and international. We must build trust. We must be a government that investors believe in, that the private sector can partner with, and that the Ghanaian people can count on. We must leverage our comparative advantages to build prosperity for our people. And this is why this retreat includes critical conversations, not just amongst ourselves as ministers, but also with the private sector and development partners, because we cannot walk this journey alone. Development today requires strong collaboration, innovative financing, and shared responsibility. We must also be clear-eyed and rise. We must play our part in defending multilateralism, promoting peace, and advancing the African agenda. We must take our place not as passive recipients of charity, but as co-creators of a more equitable global order. And this is why we must train and nurture leaders within and beyond government who understand the stakes and can rise to the moment. Let me also commend the structure of this retreat. The session on cabinet and government orientation are essential. They will guide us in understanding not only how to execute our mandate, but how to work as a team. Government is a collective enterprise. Success depends on not just individual performance, but on how we align our efforts across the sectors. I want each of you to leave this retreat with a clarity of purpose and with the humility to keep learning. This job is not about knowing it all. It is about listening. For example, I'll stay true to the values. And please remember, when any of us fall short, I will not hesitate to act. I didn't think that was what you would clap for. Let us leave here with renewed determination. Let us work not for applause, but for results. Let us lead with honor, and let us remember always that the true measure of our success will be the lives we touch and the legacy we leave behind. And finally, let me remind us all that the destiny of our party and our future success depends on the legacy that this current administration will establish. And so we must give it our all. We must work together to make our party's future successful. I therefore have the privilege and honor to declare this Executive Leadership Program duly open. I thank you, and God bless our homeland, Ghana. Let's go.
All right, thank you so very much. Another round of applause. Thank you so much, Your Excellency, for continuing to be that man in the arena, leading and ensuring that we're all following suit. Discipline, transparency, and accountability must indeed be our watchwords. I'd like to announce that the former president of Nigeria, our guest of honor, the Honorable Goodluck Jonathan, has graciously donated copies of his book, My Transition Hours, to all cabinet ministers. So all ministers will be getting copies of this book. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. We appreciate it. So we're going to do a few things now. We're going to have some photographs, after which we will just do 20-minute coffee break. So please, if you need to use the restroom, quickly do it. We are a bit behind time, so we can claw back on some time. But before that, we would take the national anthem, and then I would announce the order of photography. So when you hear your name, you would follow suit. But Mr. President, I would like you to know that in here today are your ministers of state. We have your deputy ministers of states as well. We have senior government officials at the presidency. We also have veteran members of the party who have all gathered here to share their experiences. And of course, our partners, UNDP, have a very strong delegation here as well. So that is who is in the room today. And Mr. President, please announce to everyone that they are expected to stay for the duration of the program. Should I announce it on your behalf, sir? So Mr. President says all of you are expected to do what? I didn't hear. All of you are expected to do what? I will take names of absentees and I'll ensure to pass it on, Mr. President. Thank you so very much. So the President would rise now, we'll take the national anthem, and we'll proceed to take some photos outside of this hall. Thank you. So, Mr. President and our guests of honor, you take leave of us just outside the hall where we'll be taking photos. I would like to announce, Cabinet, please remain seated, everyone. I would announce the order with which we will all proceed outside. So the Chief of Staff, Senior Presidential Advisor, Madam Valerie Sawyer, as well as General Esiedu, would also join the delegation. So the President has also told us that the Education Minister and the Gender Minister would join him in Accra. So they are the only exceptions. Otherwise, everyone else, I am taking notes. Okay. No, stay. So the President and Cabinet should proceed. Please remain seated. I'll call the order of the photography so we don't crowd the photo place. Thank you. Thank you very much. So next to join would be our other dignitaries, as well as the UNDP rep. So you may also proceed to take the photos. UNDP reps, our dignitaries, and that includes our international speakers as well. Kindly remain seated, please. Cabinet ministers and ministers of states, please also now proceed to join.
You've been kept down for much too long.
Afterwards, deputy ministers will follow, including regional ministers as well. Okay. So regional ministers, deputy ministers. Then the last group for all of us would be the presidential advisors, presidential staffers, and other senior government officials. Please, 20 minutes after the coffee break. 20 minutes after the coffee break. Staff of the Vice President Office, Alex, and my own brother.